There's a reason why her son Louis is also 5 years old. The year she filed for divorce from her ex-husband Jesse James was 2010, the same year she adopted him. Your little boy is so sweet, and I sure. Have I met him? Not at all. I don't. Believe you have. Why not? I think you have, but you do. But it could be because you and he are both from New Orleans. Sandy Bullock took home a 3-month-old baby from New Orleans in January 2010. He was named Louis. That child is now a teenager who gives his Oscar-winning mother advice about her job. But this is what no one saw coming. Louis looks just like someone Sandra used to know. A person she hasn't talked to in years. The pictures are very shocking. The face, eyes, and behavior are all the same. Sandra's best friends had to ask her some awkward questions because of how much they look alike. The truth is more strange than any story in a movie. She was born in Arlington, Virginia, on July 26, 1964. Sandra Bullock's mother was a German opera singer named Helga Meyer, and her father was an American voice coach named John Bullock. But Sandra Bullock didn't grow up in the United States. Her family went to Nuremberg, Germany, when she was a little girl. She spent most of her life there, getting to know the culture of Europe, learning the language, and living near music. Because her mother was an opera singer, the family always had to move. Grew up in different European cities, always behind the scenes of big theaters, with singers, actors, and bands all around. Sandra did more than just watch shows by the time she was 5. She was in them. She joined children's groups for live shows all over Europe, taking part in well-known musicals like Carmen and the Magic Flute. These were not plays for school. For these important shows, she had to learn real music, practice with professionals, and stick to tight schedules. She spoke and sang in German. She learned to be responsible early on. Sandra was on the road with artists, sitting in orchestra seats and standing under stage lights, while most kids her age were playing at home. Life wasn't always pretty, though. It was a big change for her when her family moved back to the U.S. and landed near Washington, D.C. She didn't belong there. Her friends made fun of her German clothes because they were too old. She didn't feel like she belonged. They didn't get her, and she didn't get them either. She remembered being turned down when she was young, but it also taught her to care about other people. She knew what it was like to be the only one not in the group. She still spoke German as her first language. It was something she did at home, and she still does. She is even a citizen of both Germany and the United States. The way she saw the world changed because of how many different faces she had. Her acts felt more real and unique because of it. She brought something unique to the world of Hollywood stars who are all the same. Truth that comes from two places. She moved around a lot as a child, going to new towns, schools, and making new friends. She had lived in several places in Germany and Austria by the time she was 10. She learned how to change, read a room, and quickly connect with people by moving around a lot. It also made her tough. You need to learn how to stay steady in order to get through that kind of uncertainty. She went to East Carolina University after high school. She went to school for theater and was almost done. But she dropped out in 1986 with only 3 points left. She said she didn't like school. She didn't want to go to college. New York was her wish. She moved there with only a dream and no promise of anything. New York City was mean. She didn't have any money. She worked at a bar at night, serving drinks and checking coats. At 2 a.m., she'd finish her shift, get to acting class by 6 p.m. She lived in a small room that didn't have heat and got by on soup and coffee. She never gave up, though. That grind made her humble. She knew how tough life could be. It made her strong and thankful. 2 things you can't lie about in public. In 1987, she got her first movie part in Hangman, a low-budget horror. It was hidden from view. There were then a few more movies that went straight to video, such as Who Shot Patacongo and Religion, Inc. They were all misses. Most of them are very hard to find these days. But Sandra wasn't made fun of by them. They showed her what not to do and helped her remember where she came from, she said. In 1988, things began to change when she played the lead in a small play called No Time Flat that wasn't on Broadway. Even though it wasn't a big show, a talent agent was interested in one act. Soon after, she got a part in the TV movie Bionic. Showdown, The $6 Million Man, and The Bionic Woman, which came out in 1989. Of a young scientist, she played him. Even though it wasn't the lead part, it was enough to make people notice her. She finally got a lead in 1990. NBC gave her the lead part in the sitcom Working Girl, which was based on the hit movie of the same name. She played Tess McGill, but the show ended quickly. Some people didn't like it. The numbers went down. After only 12 shows, it was taken off the air. It did help her get her foot in the door, though. The most important thing it taught her was that failing doesn't mean the end. In 1994, Sandra Bullock didn't get the part of Annie Porter in Speed just because she was the first person chosen. She wasn't even the right person for the role. At first, Annie was written as a tough African-American nurse. Halle Berry was the clear favorite, especially after how well she did in Boomerang. She said no, though. She laughed afterwards and said she didn't want to drive that bus. And the script didn't have enough words. Big names like Meryl Streep and Kim Basinger were also thought about. Sandra wasn't known to anyone, but she still went to the interview. Not a fancy set, just a folding chair and a piece of paper for a wheel. It wasn't perfect, but something about it clicked. It worked out great between her and Keanu Reeves, who wasn't the studio's first pick either. That spark would turn out to be the movie's secret tool. No one thought Speed would be such a big hit when it came out in theaters on June 10, 1994, but it was. The movie made $350.4 million around the world. It cost only $30 to $37 million to make. That's almost 10 times the return. Sandra Bullock went from being unknown to a worldwide star in an instant. Hollywood couldn't get enough of her, all of a sudden. The very next year, she was the star of romantic movies. Another huge hit was While You Were Sleeping, which came out in 1995. It made $182 million around the world. She was up for a Golden Globe for her part. She wasn't just an action star anymore. She also loved romantic comedies. People loved her. Studios knew she could get people to come. She could now officially get a loan. Sandy did something brave that same year. She started her own company to make movies. In 1995, she and her childhood friend Mark Brunitz started Fortis Films. It was filed with the government on April 16, 1996. Aside from Austin, Texas, the business was based in West Hollywood. From the beginning to the end, her sister Gesine Bullock Prado was president. Sandra was no longer just playing. She planned, produced, and negotiated her own future. She even got a first-look deal with Warner Brothers, a big studio, in 1997. Through Fortis Films, she supported projects that she thought were good. In 1998, they made Hope Floats. In 2000, they made Miss Congeniality. And in 2002, they made 2 Weeks' Notice. All three did well at the box office. There was even a TV show she produced called George Lopez, which ran from 2002 to 2007. In the 1990s, not many women were in charge like that. Sandra, on the other hand, was new. Still, not every choice was the best. Speed, too. When Cruise Control first came out in 1997, it was a mess. Sandra wasn't sure what to do when Keanu Reeves didn't come back. Fox wanted her, though. They gave her $11 million, which is more than the $500,000 she made on the first movie. She didn't just say yes, though. She made a deal. She told the company that she would only do Speed 2 if they gave her money for her dream project, Hope Floats. Fox agreed. She took the hit to make something she thought was right. She made money on the risk, even though the movie didn't do well. It could have cost $160 million to make Speed 2, and only made $164.5 million around the world. Not even a profit. It was ripped apart by critics. Everything about it was bad. The slow pace, the weak story, and Keanu not being there. There was no better version or sequel than this one at the Razzies. In the end, Sandra said it was embarrassing, and laughed that only 5 people had ever liked it. Sandra Bullock planned a surprise garage tour for her godson in December 2003. He was crazy about the show, Monster Garage. Custom bikes worth $300,000 were made by the show's host, Jesse James, in Long Beach, California. Sandra took the boy there just to do something different for him. But it wasn't just a visit to the garage. Something else clicked. Sandy and Jesse got very angry with each other. She was the love of America. He was a famous biker with a what? Oaf tattoos. No one thought that visit would lead to a friendship, let alone a marriage. It did, though. And what began as a nice thing to do for a child turned into one of the most dramatic love stories in Hollywood history. They got married in Santa Barbara on July 16, 2005. Her age was 41. Jesse had a lot of stuff to bring with him. He had 3 kids, and one of them, Sonny, was born to adult film star Janine Lindemulder. Janine wasn't just a former porn star. She had also been found guilty of a crime. As of December 2009, Sandra and Jesse had custody of Sonny after a long and messy custody battle. Janine had been sent to jail for tax evasion. Sandra didn't just put up with Jesse's kids. She loved them. She once said, "I got married and had kids. I love those kids. My concern and my love is no less than if I had that child biologically." That statement silenced a lot of critics. It proved she wasn't just a movie star playing house. She meant it. But the dream came crashing down. In March 2010, just days after Sandra won her first Oscar for The Blind Side, the headlines exploded. At least 5 women came forward, claiming they'd had affairs with Jesse James during the marriage. Tattoo models, strippers, even someone from his own shop. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a public spectacle. One woman, Michelle Bombshell McGee, sold her story, revealing texts, meetings, and details that flooded the tabloids. Jesse publicly admitted his guilt, but it was too late. The Oscar that should have been her high point became a reminder of what she lost. 10 days. That's all the time she got to celebrate. March 7th, 2010. Her big win. March 17th. The day the cheating scandal broke. Instead of basking in career success, she was drowning in heartbreak. Paparazzi camped outside her home. Her private life was ripped open. And to make things even harder, she was in the middle of adopting a baby boy, something she'd kept entirely secret. She had brought home Louis, just 3.5 months old, in January 2010, but now she was adopting alone. On April 23, 2010, she filed for divorce. The process dragged on until June 28, 2012. All the while, she stayed quiet, focused on Louis. She once said, "How do you process grief and not hurt your child in the process?" She refused to let her pain touch her son's first year of life. That took strength most people never see. And somehow, through all the noise and scandal, she kept Louis's adoption a secret from the world. Even at the Oscars, she carried his lime. Green socks in her purse as a secret connection to him. Lewis was born in New Orleans, a city that had haunted Sandra since Hurricane Katrina. She once said, "Something told me that my child was there." She felt pulled to that place. And once Lewis arrived, the bond made sense. Her love for the city went beyond words. She donated hundreds of thousands to a local school, gave surprise speeches, and quietly became a part of the community. She didn't just adopt a child. She adopted a mission. She named him Louis, after jazz legend Louis Armstrong. His middle name, Bardo, had layers. After a German saint, a Buddhist concept about life and death, and even a nod to her late mother, whose middle name was Louise. Every part of the name meant something. It was music. It was history. It was healing. In 2015, Sandra adopted again. This time, a 2.5-year-old girl named Layla. Like Louis, Layla was from Louisiana. She had been through foster care and carried deep fears. Paparazzi tried to expose the adoption before it was finalized. At one point, they even followed them to the emergency room. But Sandra fought back. She protected her daughter the way any fierce mother would. She even took parenting classes to better understand trauma. And through it all, Louis helped Layla feel safe. Sandra said, "Louis spearheaded this whole journey." It was the middle of the night, June 8, 2014, when Sandra Bullock returned to her Bel Air mansion. She was exhausted, fresh from a long day, and ready to finally rest. After a shower, she slipped into bed, unaware that something unthinkable was about to happen. Her son, Louis, wasn't home that night. The nanny had taken him to her apartment nearby, thinking Sandra would be home late. That simple decision might have saved his life. At around 1 Fusium, Sandra heard something, a noise, then another. She assumed it was coming from her workout room, but it kept moving closer. That's when it hit her. Someone was inside the house, alone and frozen with fear. She locked her bedroom door, then bolted into the closet. She dialed 911, whispered for help. Her mind raced. She had just watched episodes of 48 Hours in Dateline. She had seen stories like this, only now she was living one. She thought, this doesn't end well. The terror in her voice was clear. She stayed hidden until police arrived. Every second felt like a lifetime. The man who had broken into her home was Joshua James Corbett. He had been stalking her for days. Police later said he was obsessed. He had stood outside her gates, watching her. He kept notes. That night, he jumped the fence, rang her doorbell for nearly 15 minutes, then slipped in through a sunroom door. In his backpack was a letter to Sandra, magazine clippings of her face, and a permit to carry a gun in Utah. Corbett owned 8 registered firearms. He didn't bring one that night, but he didn't need to. His words were disturbing enough. In his notebook, he wrote things like, "Are my wife by law, the law of God, and you belong to me." He even mentioned her son. After that night, Sandra wasn't the same. She later said she was unraveling. She developed severe PTSD. Sometimes, all it took was looking left out of a car window, and she'd start crying. It happened again and again. There was no warning, no logic. The trauma was buried deep. As a single mother, she feared what this would do to her son. Would he grow up sensing her fear? Would he inherit it? She was determined not to let that happen. So she turned to therapy. EMDR, a specialized treatment for trauma survivors. She said it helped her find her footing again. Slowly, she began to heal. Meanwhile, Corbett's life continued spiraling. He was arrested shortly after the break-in, held on a $2 million bond. In 2017, he pleaded no contest to felony stalking and burglary. He was given 5 years probation, a decade-long no-contact order, and mandatory mental health treatment. But by 2018, he had stopped showing up to court. On May 2nd, police came to his home to arrest him. Corbett barricaded himself. Inside, a SWAT team arrived. The standoff lasted 5 hours. When they finally entered the house, they found him dead. He had taken his own life. Sandra Bullock wasn't looking for love when she met Brian Randall in January 2015. She had simply hired him to take photos at her son, Louis' 5th birthday party. Randall, once a model, now a photographer, showed up with his camera. But something clicked between them, something strong. Within months, they were seen together at Jennifer Aniston and Justin Theroux's wedding. That August night in 2015 marked the first time the world saw them as a couple. Things moved fast, but it never felt rushed. Randall moved in with Sandra and her 2 adopted children, Louis and Layla. By 2016, people close to her